January 25th, reset consistency under stress. Stress reveals habits. It strips away intention and exposes what has been trained. When pressure increases, you do not rise to your aspirations. You fall to your preparation. You default to patterns built through repetition, not plans made in calm moments. Most people believe they will perform better when it matters most. They believe pressure will elevate their behavior. That urgency will sharpen focus. But stress does not create new capabilities. It reveals existing ones. If your habits are weak, stress exposes weakness. If your patterns are inconsistent, stress amplifies inconsistency. If your discipline is conditional, stress removes the conditions that allowed it to function. This is why consistency under stress is so valuable. Not because stress makes consistency harder, because stress proves whether consistency is real. Anyone can maintain standards when circumstances are favorable. Stress reveals whether those standards are internalized or just performed when conditions allow. Discipline remains calm. It does not panic when pressure increases. It does not abandon standards when maintaining them becomes difficult. It does not negotiate with itself about whether this situation justifies an exception. Most people lose discipline under stress because they never built discipline. They built compliance. They followed routines when routines were easy. They maintained standards when maintaining them required minimal effort. But they never trained behavior to hold when holding it was hard. Compliance is conditional. It depends on favorable circumstances. It collapses when stress removes the scaffolding. Discipline is unconditional. It operates independently of circumstances. It holds when scaffolding is removed because it was never dependent on it. Stress is not the enemy. Stress is the test. It reveals whether your behavior is trained deeply enough to survive disruption, whether your habits are automatic enough to function without conscious effort. Most people fail this test, not because stress is insurmountable, because they never trained for it. They practiced discipline in ideal conditions and assumed it would transfer to difficult ones. But transfer does not happen automatically. Respond. Do not react. Reaction is automatic. It is emotion-triggering behavior without thought. It is the pattern that activates when pressure removes the space for deliberation. Reaction feels necessary because it is fast, but fast is not the same as effective. Response is deliberate. It is the insertion of thought between stimulus and action. It is the pause that allows you to choose behavior instead of defaulting to it. Response requires training, because under stress, the default is reaction. Most people react under stress because reaction is what stress activates. Fight or flight, panic or freeze. These are the automatic patterns stress triggers when deliberate patterns have not been installed. Training response requires practicing pause on pressure. It requires repeatedly choosing deliberate action when automatic action feels urgent. It requires building the habit of thought before behavior, even when behavior feels like it cannot wait. This is counterintuitive, because stress creates urgency, and urgency demands immediate action. But immediate action is often wrong action. It is action driven by emotion rather than logic. The strongest response to stress is not speed. It is calm, not the absence of action. The presence of deliberation, not doing nothing, doing the right thing instead of the first thing. Discipline under stress looks different than discipline in calm. In calm, discipline is effortless. It is the automatic execution of patterns that require no thought. Under stress, discipline is effortful. It is the conscious override of automatic patterns that pressure activates. But the effort is temporary. The more you practice discipline under stress, the more automatic it becomes. The patterns you train in pressure become the patterns that activate in pressure. Most people avoid stress. They design lives that minimize pressure. They remove challenge in pursuit of comfort. But in doing so, they never train their discipline to function under load. This creates fragility. When stress arrives, and it always does, they collapse. Not because they lack capability, because they never trained capability under the conditions where it would be needed. Reality includes stress. Reality includes pressure. Reality includes circumstances that are not ideal. If your discipline only functions in ideal circumstances, it does not function. Stress is the forge. It is where real discipline is tempered, where patterns are tested, where behavior is proven or exposed. Hold standards during pressure, not by forcing them, by training them so deeply that holding them becomes automatic, by practicing consistency in stress until stressed consistency becomes normal. This is not about enduring stress. It is about functioning in it, about maintaining performance when performance becomes difficult. Stress does not have to destroy consistency. Stress reveals whether consistency was ever real. If it collapses under pressure, it was never discipline. It was compliance. Reset your understanding of consistency. Stop measuring it only in calm. Start testing it in stress. Discipline remains calm, even when everything else does not. Day 25, built in silence.